The anime starts in a house where a redhead called Enzu is excited that her new video game has been delivered. She kisses it as she is obsessed with games. Ever since young, she only focused on video games and cared about chocolate. The love of her life is her cat Mamahiki. Romance was not part of her life until she met a guy. Sitting in her room while munching on chocolate, she plays a love game. With goddamn shit graphics. What the fuck is this? Anyways, Enzu refuses to believe that the new game is that bad when suddenly, a wizard puppet called Riri jumps out of the TV. Of course, Enzu is confused, so Riri explains to her that she came from the magic world to help Enzu with her love life. Saying that she doesn't need it, she mentions her love for in-game characters. Riri tells her she will be able to live her life like an Otome game and talks about the new game called Romantic Thriller, making fun of Enzu for not being able to handle the game. Enzu assures Riri that the game is just ass. Riri helps her picture a life full of romance and pretty boys, but Enzu is hesitant. To help her, Riri confiscates her cat, chocolate, and video games. She goes to check immediately and realizes that all her video games have turned into octopus skewers. Checking her chocolate now, it has also disappeared and Riri has poop on his lips. Enzu is mad and Riri tells her that she has spent all her time playing games instead of dates and now has to pay. As such, her greatest desires will be confiscated until she gets into a lovely relationship. Thinking that it is impossible, she pleads to Riri and gets smacked as he is here to solve the low birth rate problem. After being annoying for a few more seconds, Riri tries to leave. Enzu grabs him, but Riri tells her there is no going back. As Enzu is complaining, Riri disappears. She immediately runs down to find Mamahiki and sees that it is on the air conditioner. Just then, her dad comes home telling Enzu's mom that he has been transferred to the US for work. Again, Enzu is flabbergasted as she will be left in Japan alone. Her parents bring Mamahiki along with them and leave for the US. Enzu drops the ground and gets angry when Riri appears to spout some more nonsense. Enzu throws him to the ground and grabs him, demanding Riri return things to normal. She runs out, yelling like Hulk as all the chocolate stores are closed and sold out in convenience stores. Enzu kneels on the ground and shouts. She decides to never have a relationship to the point where Riri will give up and leave her alone. Romantic thriller? No. She is the romantic killer. Stomping out the store, she accidentally hits a guy's phone and doesn't know what to do. He goes to pick it up and she apologizes, offering to pay, but the guy insists it is fine. Since he is low-key hot, so Enzu gets nervous and runs away. The next day, she walks to school thinking about the hot guy yesterday. Just then, Riri appears and follows her around. Since no one else can see Riri, Enzu doesn't want to look crazy by talking to him, but Riri tells her that everyone sees an illusion of her when they are talking. After slapping her with his wand, he disappears again. Tsukasa, the guy from yesterday, looks at her and she realizes they go to the same school. His friend comes wanting to help her up, so Enzu quickly stands up and they leave. In the train station, a girl confesses her love to him, but Tsukasa coldly refuses and walks away. Enzu sees what happens. Another girl called Rina approaches him and starts glazing. His friend told him he could have accepted the letter, but Tsukasa doesn't want anybody getting the wrong idea. When Enzu is mad at him, Tsukasa tells Rina that his phone broke, so he couldn't reply to her message, and Enzu starts melting. In school, she brings her friend Saki into the cafeteria. When she is choosing her meal, Tsukasa talks at the same time. While eating, Saki talks about Tsukasa, adding that everyone likes him but Enzu thinks otherwise. Rina starts dick-riding Tsukasa again and Enzu wants to leave. At home, she lies on her couch, bored without her games. Going to make dinner, she spots a cockroach and rushes away. She awakens the soldier with "never mind." She runs out the house. Sitting outside because she is scared, it starts raining and Enzu finds shelter under a bare structure. Contemplating whether to go back, Tsukasa walks to her. As Enzu crawls away, he tells her that there have been reports of a creep, so Enzu runs away. He pulls her back and tries to give her an umbrella, but Enzu, the genius, sees where this is going and rejects it. She gives an excuse saying that he will get wet. As she continues rejecting, Tsukasa drags her to his house. He accidentally touches Enzu's hand and starts blushing. Since no one wants the umbrella, Tsukasa decides to hold it for both of them. Walking, Enzu tries her best to not give in. In the house, she starts thinking that he is hot but pulls herself back together. After giving her a towel, Tsukasa asks her why she was hiding in the park, so Enzu fearfully tells him of the roach in her house. As she rants about her parents and Mamahiki and her bad day, Tsukasa laughs at her like a Sigma. When he makes a comment, it breaks Enzu's guy blurring filter and she has to use the Momiki filter now. Tsukasa offers to help her kill the cockroach. She sadly rejects his offer and Tsukasa questions whether she is avoiding him, telling her not to worry about the phone. Enzu shyly accepts his help and they get ready to leave. Her Mamahiki filter deflates and Enzu rages internally. At her house, Tsukasa looks for the roach with a newspaper in his hand. She spots something in her peripherals and rams into Tsukasa, telling him to get it, but it's just a lid's cap. Somehow, she is on top of him and the roach walks by. He smashes it and as he is leaving, introduces himself and tells her not to avoid him. He advises her to take a warm bath like he is her dad. When he opens the door, wind rushes towards him. He tries again and almost gets punctured. In the house, the two watch the weather report on the TV and Enzu wonders how she got in this situation with a hot guy. Just then, her stomach growls and Enzu goes to make dinner. Riri appears and, sorry mommy. ESPN replay? Riri set up the whole thing and Enzu is pissed off. Riri reminds her to cook some good food, but Enzu realizes that she is trying to do the opposite, so she presents him with instant noodles. After dinner, Enzu takes on Riri's challenge. She tells Tsukasa to spend the night and gives him her dad's clothes. After her bath, she comes out in her lame outfit and Tsukasa's dick inverts. Enzu brings out some board games and absolutely destroys Tsukasa. Getting irritated, he challenges her to another game with the loser making lunch. As the game goes on, Enzu gets unlucky while Tsukasa's rounds are smooth sailing. She gets mad, blaming it on luck but sees Riri smirking. Continuing the game, Enzu loses her fucking mind and Tsukasa laughs at her. In the end, he wins and now Enzu has to make lunch. Feeling bad, Tsukasa offers to help. He realizes that she puts sugar in everything and sees that her scrambled eggs are burning. She eats the one Tsukasa made and he adds that he works part-time at a bar. Persuading him, Tsukasa eventually makes her lunch and they wash the dishes later on. When he goes to the toilet, Riri mocks her for playing children's games and casts a spell on her. Tsukasa comes back to see Enzu sleeping and covers her with a blanket. She grabs his arm, making Tsukasa comment on how much fun he had. In her dreams, she finds Mamahiki and goes to grab her. Suddenly she feels rock-hard abs and her cat is ripped after being thrown around in Times Square. After Mamahiki runs away, Enzu wakes up from her sleep and hears her alarm. Looking up, she sees Tsukasa and realizes that she has been sleeping on his lap the whole time. Enzu starts blushing as she does not recall anything from yesterday and apologizes to Tsukasa. Brushing it off, he wears his shoes and leaves her house. Enzu sees that she forgot to give Tsukasa his lunch and imagines herself giving it to him in school. As she gets ready for school, she thinks about Tsukasa but pulls herself back together. She gets mad at Riri when Tsukasa comes to the house again to show her that his house has been flooded. He borrows Enzu's phone and his house gets even more flooded. Later, they exchange phone numbers and Enzu gives him his lunch. He takes out the bag which has cats on it, thanking Enzu for everything. Once he leaves, Riri appears and laughs evilly. Tsukasa finds a new room and does his laundry. In school, Saki comments on Enzu's lunch, so she laughs awkwardly. She contemplates whether she should tell Saki about the situation and gets a phone call. It is Tsukasa who tells her he got a new phone and asks to meet her after school. Rina goes to the teacher and asks him about Tsukasa. As the teacher calls him, Rina puts the speaker on and hears a girl. Enzu walks out of the classroom and they realize that it is her on the phone. In a cafe, Tsukasa constantly gets stared at by other girls and the waiter. Soon, Enzu comes in but Rina and her friend are also there. She starts meat riding once again and when they go to get food, he seems annoyed. The scene flashes back to Rina and Yukika telling Enzu that they will join her after school. After she explains what happened, Tsukasa grabs her out of the cafe. They walk and Tsukasa clarifies that he and Rina are not friends. She just follows him around like a stalker. As they apologize to each other, Tsukasa comments on how Enzu is different from the other girls and is easy to talk to. She confirms that he is not looking to date, so Enzu lights on fire knowing that they can be friends without it developing into a relationship. Tsukasa now asks for permission to store his toothbrush. Feeling bad, she considers inviting him to stay at her house but remembers that Riri set everything up. Instead, she offers to pay for the phone when Tsukasa gets a call. The realtor on the call tells Tsukasa that there are no available rooms and now, Enzu is devastated. Tsukasa adds that the phone price is almost 1 month's rent and suggests that Enzu let him stay in exchange for the phone compensation. She is surprised about him staying for a month, but Tsukasa tells her he will get rid of any roaches. Knowing that Riri will set up more weird situations, she is extremely hesitant but has no choice but to accept. In the house, Tsukasa is making her lunch. He asks if she eats breakfast and makes Anzu a sandwich. When Tsukasa goes to get his gym clothes, Riri appears to mock her, but Anzu makes fun of him because Tsukasa is not interested in dating. Still, Riri tells her romance is unpredictable. Just then, she hears the doorbell and opens the door to see another hot guy. Anzu doesn't know who he is even though he is her childhood friend. With Tsukasa coming out, the two guys stare at each other awkwardly. Anzu stands in the middle of them not knowing what to do. Tsukasa asks Anzu about the guy and he introduces himself as Hunta Hayami. When he asks if Tsukasa slept at her house, Anzu quickly interrupts to introduce Tsukasa and runs into the house with Riri. Tsukasa and Hunta side-eyes each other and walk away. Inside the house, Anzu kicks and beats the shit out of Riri. Screaming at him asking who the fuck Hunta is, Riri explains the backstory of this side character, adding that he has had a secret crush on her since elementary school. Anzu shivers in disgust as Riri continues harassing her. As she makes her way to the door, Hunta is chatting to an imaginary Anzu. Walking to school together, Hunta questions her about Tsukasa, telling her that she should reconsider letting him stay. Bro, why are you cock-blocking? She assures Hunta that Tsukasa is a good guy when suddenly, strong wind starts blowing and Hunta goes to touch her face. Never mind, she has a fucking beetle on her head. After he removes it, he tells her that it is worth $100 and sets it free. Now, Anzu wants to catch the damn thing. While doing so, Riri makes her trip and Hunta catches her. Since her hair is messed up, he offers to fix it for her. They have a conversation about the past that Riri implanted in Hunta's head. When he asks Anzu what games she plays now, she tells him that they have been confiscated. Soon, Saki meets her and greets Hunta. Anzu is surprised that she knows Hunta as it means that Riri messed with Saki too. She offers to help Anzu with her hair and ties it up nicely. At the train station, Tsukasa meets with his friend, Makoto, who comments on his new phone. The glazer walks up to him, nagging him for leaving her in the cafe, and asks to exchange numbers. He says pass and strolls away, telling her to leave him alone. After PE, Tsukasa runs into Hunta and Makoto is shocked that he knows Hunta. He says that Hunta is the star rookie in their baseball team and is amazed that he is Anzu's childhood friend. When asking about Tsukasa, Hunta's friends tell him that Tsukasa is hot and smart, so he becomes slightly jealous. Just then, two girls go up to them and they ask the girls about Tsukasa. Hunta asks a very hypothetical question of whether they would let Tsukasa sleep over at their house, and they happily say yes. His friends get jealous that he was walking with Anzu, but he denies any romantic feelings. However, he actually thinks Anzu is cute but bangs his head on the glass. In the classroom, Saki has to go to a meeting when suddenly, she sees Tsukasa coming in. He tells Anzu to go outside where they exchange lunches because she packed them wrong. His friend comes over and Tsukasa tells him to keep his mouth shut. He introduces himself to Anzu. Finding a spot to eat, the three of them have lunch and talk about their siblings. Makoto brings up Tsukasa's sister, but he brushes it off. At the corner of her eyes, Anzu sees Makoto's chocolate bun, and he gives it to her. However, her hand is blocked by a barrier. Looking out the hallway, Rina sees Anzu with Tsukasa and gets envious. On the way home, Rina calls out to her asking for her time. Hunta goes to Saki as he is looking for Anzu, and she tells him that she already went home. He runs into Tsukasa again in the hallway and asks him about Anzu. At that moment, he spots Anzu following Rina. They go outside while Tsukasa and Hunta eavesdrop on them. Rina interrogates her on whether she is interested in Tsukasa, but Anzu assures her she is interested in nothing but chocolate, video games, and Mamahiki. Since she is not interested, they force her to help set up Tsukasa and Rina. Remembering how much Tsukasa dislikes Rina, Anzu declines. When Rina starts to look agitated, a girl walks robotically towards Anzu, questioning if she is ready to go home. She turns towards Rina and her friends and starts complimenting her aggressively. Rina tells her to shut the fuck up and stop glazing, so the girl adds that Rina is too ugly for Tsukasa. When Rina stomps off, Anzu realizes that the girl is Riri. She sees Tsukasa and Hunta behind her and gets startled. Telling Anzu that he followed her and eavesdropped on purpose, he adds that he was going to step in case. After she punches Riri into the ceiling, Tsukasa apologizes and thanks Anzu for rejecting Rina, but Riri is being annoyed. She introduces herself as Anzu's cousin to the Junta and Tsukasa and suggests everyone hang out at Anzu's place. She continues persuading and pulls Anzu back to her house. At home, Anzu wants to stop Junta from having a crush, so she puts on a loser outfit but Riri smashes her. Anzu stands up, wanting to know when Riri became a human, and she replies saying that she is here to support Anzu in getting Junta. She forces Anzu to change with that creepy smile on her face and makes her trip. Landing on the ground, she realizes that she is on top of Tsukasa. He mentions how weird things happen when he is around her, but Anzu acts confused while Riri smiles. Later, Junta arrives with a box of fried chicken. He smells curry as Tsukasa is cooking. When they have dinner, Anzu is extremely impressed with the curry. Riri instigates by asking Junta about the food, causing him to become even more jealous that Tsukasa is better than him. Both Junta and Anzu want seconds, but Tsukasa exposes that she is on a diet. She quickly assures them that it is just for chocolate, and Riri sarcastically mentions how delicious chocolate is. When Anzu goes to get more, Riri compliments Tsukasa and proposes that he stay for longer than a month in Anzu's house. She digs her fingers into Riri's shoulders, and Tsukasa says that it would be way too much to ask for. Now, Riri proposes that Junta live in her house as well. They are deciding who to get ice cream by playing rock, paper, scissors, and Riri is rigging it so Anzu shotguns her into the fucking door. After fixing it, she realizes that her wand is in Anzu's hand and becomes nervous as she needs it to cast magic. Pulling her out to get ice cream, Anzu continues mocking Riri while shaking the wand. Still, Riri catches her off guard and tries to steal the wand back, but it lands in dog shit. In the house, the boys wash the dishes when Tsukasa tells Junta that he is not interested in Anzu. Suddenly, Junta drops the plate and starts getting embarrassed. Soon, Anzu comes back with Riri and her poop stick. Junta tells Riri that he dropped a plate. Is the floor okay? Junta runs back home and Anzu goes back into the house. Tsukasa tells Anzu that he hasn't had a lively dinner in a long time because he lives alone. Because he looks sad, Anzu thinks that he might have complicated family issues. In the morning, she sees Riri stealing her stuff. As she pulls the bag away, all her things fall out and Riri flies away. They walk to school and Junta spots them. His friends ask him about Anzu and Junta blushes again. In class, Anzu's friends question her when she and Tsukasa started dating. Even though Anzu insists that they are just friends, Saki gets excited that Anzu is finally in a romantic relationship. She suggests having a sleepover at Anzu's house and she gets nervous. Going back home, she is craving to play games, eat chocolate, and see Mama Hiki. As she cries herself to sleep, Junta goes back home and his mom tells him to pass something to Anzu. Later, she wakes up to hear sounds, alluding to being Riri, trying to kill him with a club. She turns on the lights and sees an underwear thief. Anzu gets mad that he stole an old lady's underwear instead of hers, and he takes his chance to leave. Junta spots the robber and chases after him at full speed. After Junta catches the thief, the two walk together and Junta tells Anzu how glad he is that she is okay. Tsukasa spots them and walks the other way. When walking back home, Junta gets a call and gives his phone to Anzu. His mom tells her that she will allow Junta to stay in her house as a bodyguard, and Anzu doesn't know what to do. Riri appears with an evil smirk. So now, Junta moves into Anzu's house and she tells them to sleep in the same room, but they reject her. Because of this, Tsukasa moves into her dad's office. Once they open the door, Tsukasa sees that it is all cats. Junta goes to talk to her but is blushing too much to actually speak, so he just leaves for practice. Riri flies up and Anzu kicks her out the window. There is still some good news though. She got a new job at a convenience store and hopes that she will have to see the boys less. In the morning, Anzu is half asleep yet still making lunch. Never mind, she falls asleep on the lettuce. Junta watches her mess up. In class, Junta proudly reveals his lunch and his friends comment on how it is worse than usual. They add that Junta's new best friend made it. Why is Anzu catching strays? After taking a picture, his friends confirm that it was Anzu who made it. Later, Tsukasa gets ready to head home from work, but his boss begs him to work the front of the house. He kindly declines and walks back home. There, a girl follows him and asks him to hang out, but he moves his arm away. When he reaches the house, Anzu grabs his arm, telling him he is late for the show. He tells them that they didn't have to wait, but they still insist. The next day, Junta rides to practice and Tsukasa invites her to go shopping to shield himself from other girls. Since he doesn't want to shop online, Anzu goes to change and comes back in the same shirt. Tsukasa tells her to change and her talent can be seen. Her talent of choosing the deadest outfit. Come on bro. Now even Tsukasa wants to pick it for her, and Enzu tries to hide her cat underwear. He takes out all her clothes and they are all cat-themed. Because Enzu still has leftover money, Tsukasa wants to bring her to get some new clothes, but that means she has to leave in... What are those? Riri appears offering to help. She pushes Tsukasa and shows Enzu her clean wand. I wish Tsukasa showed me his wand. Huh, what? Anyways, Riri brings Enzu out and she is wearing a nice outfit. Is it just me, or is the room hot as fuck right now? At the shopping mall, Enzu has turned into a monkey. They walk around and Enzu asks him whether he likes hats. Tsukasa tells her that it is to hide his face. Brother, it is clearly not working. As they go to different shops, Tsukasa gets her new clothes that she is not happy about. She realizes that she is in the palm of Riri. While walking to the toilet, Tsukasa sees her gleefully laughing about her new clothes. He nervously stands against the wall as every girl who walks past looks at him. Two girls approach him and he recalls some distorted memories, causing him to hyperventilate. Just in time, Enzu gets back and pulls him away. Enzu thanks him for bringing her along when she spots a cat bracelet that looks like Mamahiki. Since she already spent all her money, Tsukasa decides to buy it for her. On their way back, Hunta sees them and Enzu dressed up nicely. He becomes jealous that they went on a date without him. Afterwards, the show plays and Enzu screams her ass off. No, not the show. It's the cockroach. Tsukasa asks for Hunta's help, but he is currently shitting himself on the couch. While wiping the dishes, Hunta is still crying on the couch because of the cockroach. Riri spies on her from the roof and foreshadows a new boy who will come into her life. Morning comes and Tsukasa goes into her room to wake her up. Since she has never slept late for school before, she is stressed. She runs to school proclaiming that she will be late but experiences deja vu from the game. Coming up on the corner, she gets hit by a car. A guy in a suit comes out followed by a blonde man holding a toast called Hydri. Soon, the police arrive and the guy in the suit, Tsuchiya, offers to drive her to school. In the car, Enzu and the Hijiri have an awkward conversation. He comments how lucky Enzu is to be able to sit next to him. Bro, shut up. She bout to punch you, bro. Arriving at school, every student stares at them while they walk through the hallway. As Enzu is about to go into the classroom, he asks if she exchanged contacts with Tsuchiya and promises to reach out soon. When he leaves, her friends jump out questioning why she came with Hijiri and mentions how awesome he is. Tsukasa and Makoto soon arrive to make sure she is okay. Hunta appears as well. As all her friends are jealous of her, Enzu cannot be bothered. On Saturday, she waits outside the train station for Hijiri, who arrives in a black car. She comments on her sad outfit and she sarcastically apologizes for being in his sight. After pushing her in the car, they go into an expensive-looking shop where Enzu puts on a new fit. When she goes to talk to him, he realizes Enzu is taller than him and makes her wear flat shoes instead. On their way to their next destination, Hijiri shows his delusion as he mentions how Enzu got hit on purpose so that she could get closer to Hijiri. She cannot believe that anyone would do such a thing, but Hijiri proves it by saying that Tsuchiya's driver's license is on a permanent watch list. Feeling bad, she offers to pay for the dress. It's $900, by the way. Hijiri tells her to think of her dress as a peasant's gift from God, causing her to stop the car. She returns all her new jewelry to Hijiri, assuring him that she is not interested in him. As she walks away, she turns into a Jigachad. In school, Hijiri cannot believe what Enzu did. Just then, Enzu shows up with a bag to return the expensive dress. Since he doesn't like her attitude, he asks Tsuchiya to investigate her. Later, Enzu walks with Hunta and thinks about how different he is from Hijiri. Riri appears and Enzu grabs her by the shirt when Hijiri drives up to her, promising to steal her heart. He goes into her house and asks who Hunta and Riri are. Once they introduce themselves, Tsuchiya brings in a gift box that contains chocolate and video games. He puts down a pet box with little kittens inside. Menatoning that he can make any of her wishes come true, he asks her if he is interested in him now. She is about to tell him she ain't interested when Riri pushes her out to tell her that she will allow Enzu to keep her gifts if she gets into a relationship with Hijiri. Hunta questions if Hijiri likes Enzu, but he responds, saying he doesn't feel such emotions and only other people such emotions are for peasants. Enzu calls Riri a piece of shit and stomps back into the living room. As she tells Hijiri to leave, she packs up all the gifts and gives them back to him. She kicks him out, declaring that Mamahiki is needed for him to have a chance. She goes back in and wonders if Hunta would have been released from the love spell if she chose Hijiri. At work, Enzu is informed of a new employee, and it turns out to be Hijiri. He keeps seducing the customers and Enzu is not happy, but her boss is. He goes viral as every customer is attracted to him. I swear he's a minor though. What the fuck? Acknowledging that Hijiri is actually a hardworking guy, she finishes her shift and heads home. There, she meets Tsuchiya, who thanks her for humbling Hijiri. When Enzu receives her first paycheck, Hijiri suddenly calls out to her, saying that he will fulfill her wishes with his first paycheck. She tells him what she wants and later shares an ice pop with him, adding that it is perfect for sharing with friends. Going back home, sees a text from a girl on Tsukasa's phone. Later on, Enzu realizes that it has been a month since Tsukasa moved in and reminisces about her past. Just then, she gets bumped by a guy who yells at her for spilling coffee on his shoes. As he grabs her wrist, a lady jumps in, telling them to get the fuck away. Seeing how hot she is, the delinquent mocks her by talking about a date, but the lady manhandles the guy, forcing him to apologize. Dismissing her, he comments on how useless the book is, and Enzu goes crazy, starting a fire on his head. Soon, he apologizes and walks away with his goons. As the lady talks to her, Enzu thinks she is falling in love. Tsukasa shows up and starts speaking to the lady. He is surprised that both of them know each other, causing her to confirm whether she is Enzu. She introduces herself as Arisa, Tsukasa's sister. I want to see what their parents look like. Back at the house, Arisa thanks Enzu for letting Tsukasa stay at her house. Since they didn't expect him to live in another girl's house, she has decided to get more details from him. Enzu goes to get her a drink and Tsukasa helps out. Questioning what happened to Enzu before she met Arisa, Enzu adds that she already cursed the delinquent with a mattress covered in cat pee, making Tsukasa laugh. Seeing this, Arisa smiles. They come back with some drinks and Enzu asks Tsukasa why he decided to go to her school and live alone, but the both of them look hesitant. Arisa comes closer to Enzu and whispers that their dad is a piece of shit, so she is glad that Tsukasa is living with a nice person like Enzu. Just then, he gets a call from Makoto and leaves the room. When Arisa asks what Tsukasa is like at school, she mentions that he is reserved despite being popular. She swears on her unborn descendants that she doesn't like him like that. Tsukasa was once a sociable guy, but something happened in junior high that changed him. That is why she was glad to see him laughing. Afterwards, Tsukasa goes on a walk with Arisa and he tells her that Enzu is different from other girls. The scene flashes back to Arisa jokingly suggesting that Tsukasa continues living with Enzu, and Enzu immediately agrees. Enzu washes the dishes when Tsukasa comes back home, telling her how cool Arisa is. She wishes she has a big sister. He wants to add to what Arisa said about his dad but cuts himself off. When Tsukasa leaves, Riri appears and twerks in happiness. She tells Enzu that they will go on a mock date. After Enzu flicks her booger at Riri, she transforms into a boy and entices Enzu with cat pajamas. She goes on a date with him and he tries to hold her hand, but she walks away. He entices her with another cat shirt and she grips his wrist. Explaining that they will go to the movies, Riri says how it creates a romantic atmosphere. Later, Riri finds a romantic movie to watch. Meanwhile, Tsukasa and Makoto walk out of the theater to see Enzu and Riri. They see Enzu and Riri holding hands, but he doesn't let go. He introduces himself as Enzu's other cousin, so she drags him away. As she thinks of something devious, they go into the theater. Enzu is about to fall asleep while Riri is trying to learn romantic scenarios from the movie. He realizes that people don't do that PDA shit in movie theaters when Enzu starts crying. Afterward, he makes fun of her for crying, reminding Enzu that he doesn't feel empathy. He sees bubble tea and they get some to drink. He comments on how boba looks like rabbit shit, but when he tries some, he says it's more like frog eggs. Walking on the pedestrian, Enzu spots Hijiri from the corner of her eye. As they have a conversation, Riri budges in calling Enzu his girl, but Hijiri doesn't care. Riri brings up the time Enzu ditched him on their date and they start fighting. Enzu turns into a goblin and drags Riri away. Later, they go into a photo booth and play some machines at the arcade. At the park, Enzu admits she had fun and Riri leans on her shoulder. As he comments on how weird Enzu is for not wanting to fall in love, she warns Riri that she will take back everything he stole. On their way back, Riri kisses her cheek when suddenly Junta falls behind her. She assures Junta that they are just cousins. I kind of feel like that makes it worse. Walking out of school, Enzu sees Junta and thinks of watching him but changes her mind since Riri might appear. She rides the train and wonders if Junta would date the baseball team manager if he weren't under Riri's spell. When the door opens, she meets her friends and they go have tea. She hasn't seen them since elementary school, so they reminisce about the old times. They talk about a boy she played games with and Enzu doesn't remember the boy's name. Her friend remembers that it is Junta Hayami, but she is surprised that the chubby kid turned out to be Junta. A scene from the past is shown where Enzu is walking with Kid Junta. As she grabs her head, Enzu thinks of how stupid she is for not knowing Junta was the same boy from her elementary school. Her friends start getting confused, so she tells them that they go to the same school. As they start getting curious about Junta, they force Enzu to call him and he soon arrives. When he greets the girls, their jaws drop as they cannot believe he is the same person as before. They invite him to the upcoming reunion, and because Enzu is going, Junta also decides to go. She talks to him and their friend giggles, questioning when they started dating. As they walk back, She wonders whether Junta has actually liked her since elementary school. Back at home, Riri appears and Enzu traps her against the wall to ask her about Junta. Riri tells her that Junta isn't made up and she didn't cast a spell because emotional manipulation is forbidden. They were going to reunite anyway, so Riri just shortened the time it took for that to happen. Riri always rushed straight home after school ended and Junta never got the chance. Angry, she sits on Riri demanding for her things back. When Riri tells her that she will die alone if this continues, Enzu mentions Saki, but Saki is popular unlike her. On the day of the reunion, her old friends think she will arrive in a cat costume, but she comes in a nice outfit. She acts proud even though it was all due to Tsukasa and Riri's efforts. At the bowling alley, they have a boy versus girls competition and the losers have to confess their first love. Enzu turns into a demon as she accepts the challenge. She reads the oil on the lane and visualizes the target as Riri. After continuously hitting strikes, the boys lose in despair. They shyly confess their first loves, but one of the guys is too embarrassed to admit that he liked Enzu, so he challenges them to a rematch on air hockey. Enzu destroys them and the girls get ice cream. Later, she proceeds to demolish him in karaoke and calls him a sore loser. Just then, she gets a message from Junta and goes to get him. The girls tell the boys that Junta is the chubby boy and now goes to Enzu's school. As soon as Junta walks in, everyone else is surprised and they get excited that he is a star athlete. Teasing Enzu and Junta that they are a couple, the sore loser speaks up, commenting that Junta thinks he is better than everyone. Enzu tells him that Junta works hard and is a good guy, but he is still salty and stomps out. She chases after him and grabs his shirt. He mentions how Enzu must hate him, but she sits next to him for consolation. Unable to keep it anymore, he reveals that his first love was Enzu and she immediately rejects him. Adding that he thought about her even as he dated other girls, she calls him a piece of shit. He questions whether she likes someone like Junta and she acts oblivious. After friend-zoning him, he is laughed at and admits that he was acting like an asshole. As he apologizes to Junta for acting meanly towards him before, he smiles and dismisses it all. Going back in, everyone congratulates him for his heartbreak. As she walks out of the convenience store, Junta, Tsukasa, and Tsuchiya wait for her. Hijiri steps out and recognizes Tsukasa since both of them are popular. With his head bent up, Enzu reminds him that height does not matter. Enzu has been enjoying her time with the boys. Just then, Saki spots her and questions why the three of them are together, so Enzu explains everything inside. Saki mentions that her dad has taken the night shift and her brother now brings a bunch of women every night. Getting kicked out by him, she told her dad what happened, so there is nothing to worry about. Enzu calls her a badass, reminding her of the time when she asked some boys their penis sizes as a comeback. In her room, Saki sees a cat figurine from a video game, but they can't play it. Desperately, she tries to tell Saki about Riri but gets a stomachache. She runs down the stairs after Tsukasa passes and Saki talks to him, adding that they have so much in common. Meanwhile, Enzu is pooping while Riri laughs at her, saying that telling anyone about their contract will cause stomach distress. In her room lying down, Saki wants to hang out every day because it is summer break. When she mentions the summer festival, Enzu is already fast asleep. Ever since Saki was young, guys have been obsessed with her and as such many girls would be jealous. When a girl bumped into Saki, Enzu called her out and so, they became best friends. One of her seniors would always ask her out, but she always rejected him. Finally, she gave in and they started dating. One day, they went to his house to study for the exam, but he leans in to kiss her. Saki tries to stop him, but he hints that she should have known what would happen. After hitting him in the head, she runs out of his house. The next day, Enzu greets her and they walk to class. There, a girl brings up rumors of Saki assaulting her ex and cheating with other guys. Standing there speechless, all her classmates gossip about her, but Enzu steps up, announcing that it is a lie. She walks up to her ex and orders him to stop spreading rumors. As they sit on the stairs, Saki bawls her eyes because she is happy that Enzu is a real one. Back in the present, Riri invites them to go to the summer festival and Junta looks enthusiastic. Tsukasa doesn't want to go, but Enzu forces him because she doesn't want it to be a date with Junta. Later, they put on some yukatas and stroll past the festival stores. Since Junta is stuck in a crowd and can't get out, Enzu grabs his arm. She sees her elementary school friends when Saki and Tsukasa show up as well. When the three leave, the group continues exploring the place and Tsukasa keeps getting stares. As he is about to hyperventilate, he keeps his composure. After splitting up, Saki goes to get food and spots Makoto, who asks her about Tsukasa. Just then, she sees her ex in the line and his friends start mocking her. Makoto, realizing this, pulls her away and Saki thanks him for saving her. Enzu meets up with Tsukasa and she sees the cat bracelet that he bought for her. Fireworks burst in the air, lighting up the night sky surrounding it. As they take a selfie, the rest suddenly appear and they continue having a good time. Riri smirks and Enzu falls backward. Meanwhile, A girl in a dark room finds Tsukasa in the background of a picture. At the arcade, Anzu keeps telling Hijiri not to ask her out, but he just acts cool. She sees the plushie that she wanted last time, and Hijiri now wants to buy all the plushies without playing. Moving on, they go into a photo booth and do some poses for the camera. Walking back from a day of fun, a lady called Kishi starts talking and asks Anzu about Tsukasa. Since Anzu has no clue who she is, Kishi says that they have been dating for a long time. Meanwhile, Tsuchiya brings up to Hijiri that someone was following them the whole day, and he is concerned for Anzu. As Kishi and Anzu walk back, Kishi speaks in a ghostly manner. Suddenly, she stops and shows her the picture from the festival. When Tsukasa walks round the corner, he is startled and Kishi starts running towards him. Realizing that it is getting out of hand, Anzu steps in front of Tsukasa, instructing Kishi to leave. As the door closes, she looks creepily inside. Inside, Tsukasa is sweating his balls off, so Anzu opens the curtains to see her walking away. Anzu tells him about how she met Kishi and what she said, but Tsukasa pukes in the sink. He informs her that Kishi is his stalker. Shit is creepy. Anyways, Anzu goes to get him a glass of water, but Tsukasa grabs her hand and makes her stay with him. He brings up the reason he is living alone once again. It all happened when Kishi fell and Tsukasa helped her. From then, she would stand at the same place to greet him every day. One day, he receives a parcel and inside is a new shirt. The next day, Kishi walks past him, whispering that he looks good in the new shirt. With him receiving more unknown packages, Tsukasa's mom is extremely concerned. On his way to school, Kishi asks Tsukasa about the gifts she sent. Even though he tells her that it is creepy, she holds his hand, commencing that she hasn't met his parents. When walking home, he sees Kishi standing at the same place from this morning. And again, and again. Now what the fuck? As he does his homework, he takes a sip of his drink, causing his vision to go blurry and making him fall unconscious. The door opens and Kishi walks towards him to hug him. She has taken many photos of Tsukasa, including him being unconscious. His father slaps and blames Tsukasa for having a stalker. When he is walking, Kishi delusionally runs towards him, but Arisa pushes her down, proclaiming to Kishi that they have a restraining order against her. Before going to school, Tsukasa pictures Kishi once again and falls to the ground, crying. With help from Arisa, his mom and his teacher, Tsukasa was able to move away and live normally. Still, he has trauma and hyperventilates when girls look at him. He regrets helping Kishi and Anzu jumps towards him to hug him. Later, Arisa says that they will have to be guarded and Anzu assures Tsukasa everything is alright. The scene cuts to Kishi's mother screaming at her for being a nuisance. Kishi tells her mom that Tsukasa visited her and talked to her every day. Thinking that Tsukasa led her on, she stomps out of the room and Kishi now sees her mom as a barrier to Tsukasa. At work, Anzu is sad and Hijiri wants to talk to her. He texted her a few times yesterday to make sure she was okay. The manager tells Hijiri that Anzu forgot her phone when she left. Just then, Saki and her brother come looking for Anzu. Meanwhile, Anzu is pissed she forgot her phone when two men drag her somewhere. Slamming her to the wall, Honta appears and grabs his arm and her childhood friend also arrives. As the man goes for a big punch, Tsuchiya stops him. When Sakia and her brother arrive, he recognizes the men. They tell him that creepy woman threatened them and Anzu confirms whether it is Kishi. At the park, everyone is relieved that she sent a text to all of them before, but Anzu never sent anything. After informing Tsukasa and Arisa, Tsukasa feels bad and wants to leave, but Anzu grabs his arm telling him to figure something out as a team. As Anzu walks into her room, Riri is there to greet her. He sent all of the text messages and she thanks him for it. Asking Riri to use his magic to stop Kishi, he can only use magic for things related to her romances, so she throws his wand in dog shit. Honta has a conversation with Tsukasa and swears to protect Anzu from the stalker even if it means being kicked off the team. He only started baseball because Anzu likes athletic guys. The next day, she heads home from work and encounters Kishi, who runs towards her and takes out a knife. Riri shows up at the stall wanting to know where Anzu is. Anzu looks at her hand, which is covered in blood. Kishi holds up her knife against Anzu. Tsukasa goes to find Anzu, but Arisa and the rest stop him. After splitting up, Riri looks at his poop-covered wand, unable to use his magic to save her. Passing by, Tsukasa spots Kishi and Anzu, who is holding her head. As Kishi starts walking towards him, he hyperventilates but remembers Anzu hugging him. Pushing her to the ground, he shouts, ordering her to get out of his sight. Still, Kishi continues proclaiming her love for Tsukasa, adding that he has been influenced badly. Anzu walks in front of her, announcing that she will always be by Tsukasa's side, so Kishi will have to get through her. Starting to faint, she hears police sirens. At the hospital, she walks out happily with a head bandage. Tsukasa's parents arrive and his dad apologizes to Anzu by pushing Tsukasa's head down. As his dad drags him away, Anzu grabs his wrist and brings Tsukasa away. She tells his dad that he should be supporting Tsukasa instead of blaming him. Even though he is pissed, Arisa is dying from laughter. Later, Anzu informs Tsukasa that her mom is coming home and he questions how she is always saving him. The scene flashes back to when Tsukasa received a message from a girl whom he didn't want to reply. Just then, Anzu pushes the door and breaks his phone, but he is relieved. When Anzu fell and Tsukasa remembered Kishi, Anzu stood up herself without his help. When Rina tried to catch up to Tsukasa, Anzu accidentally bumped into her. In the present, Anzu is excited to see the Mamahiki pictures that her mom sent her. Tsukasa hugs her and thanks Anzu. At that moment, Honta walks in the room and sees them tightly hugging. Soon, Anzu's mom comes back and pinches her face because of her scar, and Arisa tells her not to worry, adding that she basically proposed to Tsukasa. As they have a conversation about Kishi, Riri can be seen outside. Kishi's mom is told that her daughter will not be protected anymore. That is because Hijiri has instructed Kishi's uncle to leave his friends alone. Kishi sits alone, mumbling to herself about Tsukasa when Riri appears. Kishi asks Riri whether she is crazy. I was about to ask you the same thing. The scene cuts to Riri appearing in Anzu's room and kissing her on her forehead. What a nice romantic moment, never mind. Riri says goodbye and leaves. Later, Arisa says that Kishi lost all her memories. Her dad barges into the room with new games and chocolates as well as her lover Mamahiki. She realizes that she has all her greatest desires back. At night, Honta contemplates going back home because he doesn't want to sleep with Tsukasa. As Tsukasa stands up trying to admit that he has fallen for Anzu, Honta reassures him that he knows. Well, Tsukasa reassures Honta that he is in the friend zone. He tries to go downstairs to meet Anzu, but Honta stops him. Downstairs, Anzu is calling for Riri, but another wizard called Kate appears. As Anzu talks to her, Honta and Tsukasa see it and are surprised. After the explanations, Honta and Tsukasa are still confused but still grateful that they got to meet Anzu. Kate tells them that Riri must have developed feelings outside of business because he has used forbidden magic to erase Kishi's memories and save her. Riri dashes and steals Kate's wand. Threatening to dip it in the toilet water, Anzu demands to see Riri. After a call to her boss, Kate tears up and summons Riri. He appears and bounces before transforming into her male version. Anzu smiles and puts him in an arm bar. He kneels on the ground, mentioning that this will be their last time meeting and Anzu should be happy, but she thanks him. As he cries while hugging Anzu, Kate asks them when they are done. Anzu wants Kate to use her magic to help Riri stay. Adding that Riri is a potential romantic partner, Kate has no choice. Now, the three of them continue their lives happily, and Anzu thanks Hijiri for saving her from Kishi. While walking, Anzu realizes she doesn't have to avoid romances anymore, but just then, Riri arrives telling her that all her things will be confiscated if she doesn't get in a relationship before high school is over. Meanwhile, Kate flies to her next subject, who turns out to be Kishi. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more content.